Don't kick a chicken. It's China spoilers. Welcome to China Spoilers, a weekly podcast discussion of making videos, putting them on YouTube, all while living in China. I am Emily, and with me as always is Peter.
That's me.
We are coming to you live from lovely whoopwu studios here in Luzhou, Sichuan, China. Tonight our big topic of discussion is actually why China for art. It's a counterintuitive choice, but we'll talk you through why we made it. But first, let's start with some softballs. And how's your uncle? I bought a basil plant kit yesterday from the Thing store. It's like a stationery store. Now I don't remember. They must have these in America too. It's like stationery, but also fun hair clips and keychains and stuff for students.
A lot of student stuff, yeah.
But I like to
like
shop
you're going
at
off to
stores.
the dorms, so there's like
Yeah. That's a good. And here in China, it's common to go to dorms even for junior high. So they have some fun stuff, and they had a little basil plant, which was 40% off, so it was not so popular. And I don't know if it'll grow. But
Well, I wouldn't imagine that the first thing as a Chinese, first time away to school, whether it's high school or college, the thing you think of is I need a foreign plant.
Right.
Using
And
my food.
the labeling was all in English, so I don't know. Like, basil is not used in Chinese cuisine, and I don't know what about this might appeal to a 10th grader, but it appealed to me. So
Maybe the thought that it wasn't an actual, like maybe it's a plant, like instead of
yeah,
plant
because they did
care
have
on
little
the
potted
windowsill.
plants that you could put up.
And
And they had like
batch.
they had like thyme, I think, and a couple other herbs that were all in English.
In
So
case you want to make some kind of like dorm spaghetti for your 6 roommates.
yeah, when you don't know what spaghetti is and you don't have tomato sauce. But anyway, I bought one, and we'll see if it actually grows. I'm not gifted with living things, so we'll see. I'll keep you updated, or I'll hide my shame. This might be the last you're hearing of a basil plant. But speaking of American style food, this week my school had a cookout for the international class, because a lot of times, and this time, if you're taking an English class, a big thing that they're promoting is the foreign teachers there because they can teach you the language, and they also can share with you some culture that maybe your Chinese English teacher might not be able to know about. So our class at our kindergarten does a lot of cultural events too. So we had like they made a bonfire on the roof, and we put hot dogs and marshmallows on sticks and toasted them up. It was interesting. It was good. It was potluck, and so all the Chinese parents brought Chinese food, and the 3 American teachers brought American stuff.
Fruit
I
salad.
made a fruit salad, which disappointingly, I made fruit salad because I thought it would appeal to the Chinese people, but then other Chinese parents brought the same fruits, not in salad form, and so the kids just ate those fruits instead.
Which is tough because one of the main food reasons that we love living, particularly in Luzhou, is that it is a fruit basket itself of amazing fruits.
Yeah, I mean, so then Peter and I had a lot of fruit salad the rest of the week, and it was delicious. I made a little syrup even, and I bought some whipped cream. I mean, I spent a lot of time chopping fruit, but it wasn't super. I'm not a gifted grower of things, and I'm not a gifted cook, so.
It might have went better than your first shot at you were going to make pasta salad with an Italian bent flavor, so that
Yeah.
you could have used your basil plant instead of growing.
Yeah, if I had a time machine, I could go forward in time to when I successfully grew the basil. Well, Now we can do that.
It probably wouldn't have gone over as well.
I mean, I figured pasta salad, it's noodles. They already know what noodles are.
But it doesn't work with spaghetti noodles.
Well, yeah, the grocery store only had spaghetti noodles, so I scrapped it at the last minute and went with fruit. But it was fun. It was nice to have a hot dog. I need to get the Taobao link to buy some hot dogs for Peter.
The link to links?
The link to links. Because they have hot dogs at the supermarket, but they are like gross and pink and very, very sweet.
Sweet spam.
Yeah, they're sweet spam sausage. But these were like real hot dogs, so.
Trucked in from
Chengdu, I believe. I don't know. Ordered online.
Not local.
Not local.
Not local big.
No local. Yeah. And then what else? Oh, Peter and I have been discovering all the cafe lattes in the city, which I would say when we got to Luzhou, they didn't have good coffee here.
They have the 3D coffee bars, which are in general they had coffee.
But it felt like it was like instant
coffee
kind of.
It was like weird water and pizza pineapple cakes.
Yeah.
And so everything, and then like a $9 beer.
Yeah, a $9 Budweiser.
Yeah. So it wasn't like anything that was fun, but nowadays the coffee is like way amped up.
Yeah, they have, and like the coffee shops themselves are cute and funky and not like weird grandma furniture that's too far away from the table. They're like decorated in a manner that's pleasing to young people, and
yeah, it's all shishi.
Yeah.
Hipster.
I mean, it's still a little pricey, but I think Starbucks came to town 2 years ago.
Everything because the coffee tastes good.
Yeah, so I think that made Luzhou up their coffee game to compete with Starbucks. But
and everywhere across the whole country, apparently it's all the rage.
Coffee's a big thing now. Yeah, which makes sense. I think.
Rage.
Yeah, people like drinking coffee, so.
Or at least having it next to their tea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and all these coffee places also have plenty of like fruit drinks and tea drinks and other drinks. But
yeah, I don't think it's like because there's strong coffees too.
We had two, and we're like.
Yeah.
Yesterday afternoon. But yeah, so that's been fun. I mean, we're going out to get work done. We're not just like on coffee safari, but that's part of the treat of like you do your work, you get to try a little coffee. I'm big on bribing myself to do stuff.
And there's usually cakes involved.
Yeah, there's sometimes cake. Sometimes
weird fries or spring rolls.
I like the spring rolls, which are not Sichuan anyway.
No.
That's more like Southern Asia. It's really spring rolly.
Well, the place that we have them, I don't think are even real spring rolls. I think they're like freeze dried.
Yeah. They're good enough. They're come with fine. Like a sweet and sour dipping sauce.
Which is not normal for here.
It's dinner time. I'm getting hungry. And then the other my uncle is doing well. I am your uncle. This is confusing. We had our last day of school on Friday, regular school, and then we immediately start summer camp on Monday, which is, work is work. But it means we're changing the whole format, and I'll be spending all day hanging out with kids and teaching them English. The interesting thing, because I did teach summer camp last year, is that the kids in a full immersion environment really do pick up English more than they do, of course, going to lessons once a week. So it was really cool to see them pick up that communication. But it's not my favorite thing to do. But as I said to Peter earlier today, I have to work a full-time job for a month. And they're paying me a full-time salary, so I guess I'll do what I do. But let's talk about communication. Communication station. We don't have a bumper for that yet.
We don't. So how about Pandering? Go.
Yeah. I've been having a lot of successful customer service interactions this week too, which is more than usual. And it's making me feel good about myself and about the world. One of them was we ordered a little adapter part for our microphones, and I ordered 2 of them, and they sent me 1, and so I was able to. The online ordering platform I use has an app where you can text message. Is that still a term people use? I had a text conversation with someone, and
or something.
Yeah, I think it was a real person. And the thing about using text is that I'm good enough reading and writing Chinese that I can formulate the sentence, "Hey, my order came today. I ordered 2, but it was only 1." I mean, maybe they read it and it was like, this is not grammatically correct, but they understood what I meant. And I can also, if I get into a jam, cut and paste into Bing Translate. I can't use Google because I can't. But so that went smoothly. And then, interestingly enough, so I we concluded our interaction, and I wrote like, "Thank you for your help," and they wrote back something that I didn't recognize. I recognize a couple of like responses to "thank you," but this was a new one, and so I put it into the translator, and it was like something like, the literal translation was like, "I am not kind," which is funny. But I mean, the response to "thank you" in China is often a deflection of like, "Oh, it was nothing. It was, it's." And in customer service, the tendency, I think, is to like, the company messed up, so there's acknowledgement and shame. But it was, "I am not kind," was a funny thing to read.
Which is all things that, like, not long ago, they sound like easy things to do, but like it would have been like, you either suck it up and now you have an extra plug and you don't get the service, or you call a friend who has to call customer service.
Yeah. My alternatives in the past would have been to bother a friend to do it for me, which I don't like to do. I don't like to bother a friend, but also I like to do it myself. Or just ignore it and order another one and suck up the lost cost, or just make do with one, which are not good solutions. So it was nice to be able to take charge and like handle the situation. And then last night with dinner, they forgot half our order. So first I called the delivery guy, who we had a conversation that like I didn't really understand, and he either told me to call the restaurant or said he would call the restaurant. After the fact, I think he said he would call the restaurant, because I called the restaurant and they kind of already knew who I was, so I think he called them first. And then I had a conversation with the restaurant where I still sometimes just agree to stuff if I don't understand. And she could tell, the woman at the restaurant, I think, could tell I was just saying yes and not understanding what she was saying. So ingeniously, she added, because she had access to my WeChat because I had ordered the meal through WeChat. So she added me on WeChat, and then we had a text conversation, which again, I can't necessarily read all of it, but I can hit translate, and then it will give me what she's saying. And so I negotiated, because she's like, "I can send you a refund, or I can send you the dumplings." And these are like the best dumplings ever. So I was like, "Send me the dumplings, we'll wait for them." And again, I was like, "Oh, thank you for your help." And she's like, "Our company messed up. It's our fault. We are so sorry." And like, it's interesting. It's interesting, that amount of...
And it also, there was, like you said, weren't you talking to somebody, I don't know, in the elevator or something? Something you're trying to get done. And once again, the dialect, even though it's local dialect that you're most used to speaking around as opposed to actually in, like, you couldn't like make out whatever they were saying. You know what the...
Oh yeah. This is kind of, I mean, the customer service conversations weren't dialectal problems. It's just vocabulary problems, and it's hard to talk on the phone in a foreign language. But yeah, yesterday I rode the elevator with a guy who had the thickest accent I ever heard, and it was just like I could pick out 1 or 2 words to know like what ballpark we were in, but I have no idea what he was saying to me.
So and, more like hearing somebody like in like a thick Scottish rogue or something.
Yeah, like from a town where if you're not from that town, nobody understands you.
You need to bring your grandkids.
Yeah, so it was the thickest accent I've heard in a while. It maybe even wasn't a Ludo accent. Maybe he's from somewhere else. But yeah, it was funny, the degree to which I didn't understand what he was trying to say. But I was just going, yeah.
It's like a trip to the outskirts of Boston.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was nice to have these transactions completed, and the first one was all via text message, and he or she may or may not have realized they were talking to a foreigner, although they might have realized they were talking to someone with bad grammar. But definitely the restaurant exchange, she several times like, you're a foreigner, right? Like, yeah. But it was like really, on one hand, like she went out of her way to help me out with the solution of like, she could tell I was not, she must have been asking me for input on stuff and not yes or no questions, and I was just answering yes. So she knew like this was not resolving the issue, so she came up with like, let's text about this. It was just like gratifying to be treated with that much courtesy, and it made me a little bit consider how we treat Spanish speakers in the United States. Not as well often. So that's a little moralizing for you. Think about how you treat people who are trying to get by in a different language. It's hard.
Yeah, we're always amazed at. It's not like we're a small town, but a small town of 2 million, and a lot of people might be aware that we're here because there's hardly any foreigners, but like most people are still surprised when they see us. Like we're not like in everyone's face every day or anything.
Yeah.
So the amount of times, like even like yesterday, like because it was really busy in Watson's, whatever
the drugstore.
The drugstore, and like I'm with my cane, and one of the women is like, "Here, come sit down at the beauty station." And I'm like, "Well, no, thanks. I want to stretch," but like that kind of like people go out of their way really to like, even with language barriers, the kindness is always just overwhelming. I don't know whether that's a small city or just because we're foreigners, probably a little of both, but it's always surprising.
It's not, it is a city, so it is like people are living their lives and going about their business, and I think, like, if you came from a small town wherever, and you came to Luzhou, you might be shocked at, like, the coldness, but that's, like, the city coldness, not, like, well, when you were in the hospital, one of the students who was helping you out one day, the medical students, not just like a student, mentioned they came from a small town outside of Luzhou, and I said something about like everyone being so friendly here, and he was like, I don't think they're friendly. And so it's interesting to see like what people perceive is the right amount of friendliness, but to us, we do stick out because we are foreign. I think we get stared at a lot. But that's just par for the course. But that people do help out, and people are kind in ways that are surprising to us as city dwellers from New York City, where like we
don't expect anyone to be looking at us.
No, it's none of your business.
Yeah. But then on top of this, going back to the communication with like you having the amount of skills where you can like actually get over humps of like phone conversation, like things that are deliberately confusing to anybody in any situation, where you can kind of start to really pick things apart of like, oh, I see what the problem is here. You meet them halfway, and they meet you halfway. Actually,
and it kind of reminds me of like, I've been to France a couple times, and the French are notorious for like being snooty about if you don't speak their language. But in my experience, you don't have to speak their language well. If you try, a lot of times, if you try to speak French, this is only my experience, but so if I tried to speak French, my French was never that good. But they would immediately like soften up and often speak English to me. But like it's the effort that's appreciated. I don't know if that's what's happening here because I don't know.
Well,
I don't think Chinese people have that reputation that the French do for like, you better learn our language.
Well, I think
the Chinese are like, our language is really hard.
Yeah, they do tend to be like, I mean, even like with me only knowing like a couple of words, they can like, I just need to say thank you in Chinese, and they're like, wow. So I mean, there is a
they're
like,
very impressed.
Easily with what little skills you have.
Yeah.
So
but
you
yeah,
can actually like have a conversation about like where you're from and what if you're like talking, I don't know, about like different towns of like, when I was in Ybin or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I've never even been there, so.
Yeah. But yeah, so we had some good successful exchanges in Chinese and using a translator. And then on the opposite end of that, I've just noticed, so when I go to school, I'm not allowed to speak Chinese in front of the kids at all. They can't really know that I speak Chinese. They're only supposed to speak English with me. But sometimes, so in the morning we have actual class, and then in the afternoon they have a free play time where I just like go around from class to class and station to station and like hang out and play with the kids. And the kids don't speak that much English. We're not learning that much English. So when they want to talk to me, they talk to me in Chinese, which I understand. So I usually respond to what they've said just in English. So we end up having these conversations in two languages. And it's weird because I understand the full content of the conversation and they understand their half of it. But then like sometimes they'll pick up, especially if we get near an area of vocabulary that they know, I'll try to like emphasize that. And then so like colors, everybody knows the color. So if I say like blah 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 blah, blah blue, they'll be like, oh, blue, 蓝色, 对. And like it's interesting. It's weird, and it reminds me of a Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog.
Jim Jarmusch.
Oh yeah.
He has this movie Ghost Dog where there's a Haitian French guy, ice cream man,
who's talking to Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah. And so it's happening. The conversation is happening in French and English, and in this one, neither one of them understands the other's language. And it's a movie, so I think like there's poetic resonance in the misunderstandings that they're sharing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's interesting because the kids are so open with me. They do want to share, and I think that's where the resonance is like these two characters who don't have connection are looking for a connection. And I do have a connection with these kids. They know me, but that they want to share with me so much, and that they don't get frustrated even when they pick up on like, I don't understand what you're saying. They just keep going on with it. That's the part that I think impresses me, is they keep, like sometimes they'll mention like, I don't understand what you're saying. And then I'll say like, I know you don't. And like, we just keep chattering on.
I noticed that even too, a little bit with the adults.
Yeah.
That like, you wander down a way of like, where there is a communication breakdown and you are talking about one thing and they're talking about another thing. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and why would anyone get upset? It's low stakes chit chat.
Although in America, I found myself like going around in circles with friends, like, no, but I'm saying this, no, but I'm saying this, no, but I'm saying this. Like,
yeah, but if it's your friend, like maybe you're having a conversation that has like a little more heft to it, like if you're breaking up with someone, like it is important. That point, the misunderstanding is important. But if you're
We've
just
never broken up with a Chinese neighbor.
Yeah, we've just left. Our neighbors are generally pretty good. But yeah, so just it's fun to have these little conversations because it is like, it's playtime. It's not in my nature to be scoldy anyway, although I'm pretty scoldy in the morning. But I mean, because that's how specific objectives we're supposed to accomplish. And if we're not accomplishing them, get back on track. But it's playtime. We're hanging out. I want that to be fun. And so like the fun part of hanging out with me is that we're just hanging out, low stakes. I'll comment. I'll look at what you're drawing. It's interesting not having kids, but now working with kids for a while. Like, they just want your attention sometimes, and your attention and an approving noise, and so it is like I've seen, in real life and movies and TV, like, hey, dad, look at me, dad, look at me, dad. And like they will do that to me. I mean, they don't call me dad though. Teacher Emily, look, watch this, watch me, look. They just want your attention, and I can give it to them. So,
kids.
If we're gonna philosophize, maybe that's all anybody wants. They just want a little attention and validation. It doesn't even have to be in the same language. But yeah, so let's go on to business. We are currently at 199 subscribers.
Ooh, come on,
Number 200 could be you. It's very exciting. This is the most subscribers we've ever had, so that's exciting.
We're pushing the limits.
Yeah. But like we said last week, we're kind of relaxing a bit about our numbers and just having a good time. And we'll talk more about specific videos later, but our kind of current strategy, especially while I'm starting summer camp, part of what's a drag about summer camp is that right now I work 15 hours a week, but this will be closer to 40 hours a week. So it's really going to take away from my time to make the videos. But so that's part of our strategy for the summer. And also because we wanted to try out a new thing with these characters, is to make these short little one-hit wonders that are just like a minute or two. Like even the draft had kind of grown into like 5 to 7 to 10 minutes sometimes. So shrink it all back down, write one scene, film it, put it out.
Well, a lot of I think. Because we tend to have like so many ideas, so many stories that we will find we have one batch of stories that grows from like 3 to 8 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And while that's really satisfying to put together a piece like that, we just don't have the draw enough. We can't show up enough in any kind of algorithm or have any kind of fan base for anyone to find that. So when they do, they watch like the first minute and think that that's what the whole videos are like. But like no, we've got 10, 20 sketches in this entire thing. It's going to change, and no one can really see that. So by taking all these ideas and breaking them all down into like little 1-minute bits that they are, it's probably better for getting recognized, and it's also easier to put together and film.
So from our side, it's easier to put together just 1 minute, and then from the audience facing side, the goal is to see, can we get 100% watch time or closer to that with a 1 or 2 minute piece? Can we get someone to watch all of 2 minutes versus a quarter of 5 minutes?
Well, because a lot of what was happening was if we have like, let's say like 10 skits in like an 8-minute piece, people would watch the first skit, and that would kind of come to a close, and that's what I mean. I could look at the numbers and I'd go back to the video and I'd see like, they watched to the end of the skit, but that wasn't even actually what they clicked on it for, because like the actual subject matter we were going to talk about wasn't until like minute 8 or something like that. So they probably watched the first thing. If we said like this one is about candy, and this video is about candy, and they clicked on the first one and it was a skit about salt. They saw salt, went, oh, I just watched a skit about salt, I'm turning it off.
Yeah,
so they missed
an idea finished. And then so they finished watching.
So we'll just make one idea.
And that's, I mean, it's not, it's hard to say because it's YouTube wants you to make longer videos so that you have more time for them to say, like, we have so and so many hours of blah blah blah,
which is ridiculous garbage. Because
takes, but their objective is more eyeballs all the time, and so statistically, if you have a longer video, that might contribute to the overall eyeball count.
But even they know that.
So they advise longer videos rather than shorter videos. But we suspect, or you maybe know, that it does make a difference how percentage-wise are people finishing your video or are only people watching a little bit of it. So it's possible in the mishmash of this unknowable algorithm, a shorter video that people watch all of does better for you than a longer video that people watch mostly none of.
Because the algorithm is not, if somebody watches like 10% of your video, even though they clicked on it, that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
The fact that they only watched the beginning of it means it performed poorly, so it will bury it.
Yeah.
But if you watch all of 1 minute,
yeah,
then it's like, oh, well, that was a successful video.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because the thing is like, and YouTube knows this too, that like the putting out a longer video was a great idea for the algorithm for YouTube when there wasn't as much stuff on YouTube to watch, because people would just watch anything, I guess. But now it's well known that like people have options, so that they're asking you for quantity and quality. So go ahead and if you're going to make 4 videos a week, make 3 half-hour videos that are all amazing. Which is like, you can't ask a Hollywood studio to do that in 1 week.
But this is not why we do the podcast, but it does help that the podcast is over an hour every week, more than an hour every week. And it does seem like people who are watching the podcast, watch more than a minute or two. So our numbers for that, we are adding to the eyeball count that way, which is probably overall good for our channel. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say, and we're not killing ourselves about it.
Yeah.
So it is like we've reassured ourselves. Well, we've got the China spoilers every week. That's giving it a nice big chunk of watch time, and then so let's concentrate on making these little teeny pieces the best that they can be.
Right. Because if you have, if 10 people watch these China spoilers, that's 10 hours. So YouTube is like, oh, we're happy.
Yeah.
And then if we put out like 10 other videos that are all a minute long, but people watch all of them, then, I don't know, give or take, kind of balances out.
Yeah, maybe. We don't really know. Nobody really knows.
Well, and this is what we're here to find out. I mean, part of the whole project of us even being on YouTube, other than like building a portfolio and practicing our craft and all that, has now become, like with China spoilers, is like we're making a YouTube channel in China. Like, what does that even mean? How does this work? I don't know. It's kind of interesting in that weird, like, gamey way.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, like, again, no one's paying us for this. This is all a volunteer thing.
And
so
we're not asking for money unless you want to get
so why not just do whatever we want? It doesn't make sense to like try to jump through these hoops, especially when we're not seeing that much reward in the form of like, I mean, YouTube doesn't give us any support. They don't provide us with editing suites or anything. And you know, it's a free platform. I mean, it's weird. I have conflicted feelings about what YouTube is as an
I think
entity.
almost all YouTube people, any creators on YouTube at this point are just like, I hate it, but I love it. I do it all day, but I despise it.
It's free video hosting, but they benefit from having our free content.
Right, and then and therefore they tend to like make it into like it's a lifestyle. You're
right. So
it's
no one here is acting completely out of benevolence. There is self-interest on all sides, and it's just to make sure our self-interest is balanced more. Because I don't care about YouTube. YouTube is not a person. I am a person.
I don't care about corporations, man.
Yeah, corporations are not people. We're getting political.
Screw you, Burger King.
Let's go on to
Your burgers taste terrible.
Homeschool Film School.
Terrible burgers.
So we live in China, and we moved here expressly, not to make YouTube videos, but with the idea of like making some kind of art. And it's, as we explained to one of our friends before we left, and he's like, but it's not like you're moving to Paris or Berlin. There's no like art society there that's gonna like be, you're not joining a movement.
Particularly where
and he's
we are.
right.
I mean, there is in Beijing. There's a lot of cool things going on, music and art, gallery-wise and video-wise, in Shanghai. But like, we are so far away from that, we might as well be on the moon.
Yeah, and even in Beijing and Shanghai, and maybe this contributes to the passion and the feelings being expressed through the art, is that free expression is not allowed here. And so if you are a working artist or working musician, you're living under constant threat of being shut down or having your work be banned, which if that works sometimes that can work in your favor, and that banned works are even more popular and get a higher profile outside of China. But maybe you're not looking for notoriety, you just want to make the work you want to make. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we wouldn't get arrested, we'd get deported before we got arrested, I think, if we said stuff that the government didn't like. But if you are a Chinese person, you could get arrested for the stuff that you say. So it is like, why would you move there to do art?
In particular, with something like art, is at least if it becomes pretty a gray area when it is art, because with if we were just vloggers and we spoke about things that, I mean, everyone is, ourselves included, is careful about what we talk about. Like, we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about religion, and the things that we're told to like just steer clear of. Mm-hmm.
In person or in public, or both.
Yeah, both. That if it's just discussion, it's a little easier to like not really think of like, I mean, I'm not writing a dissertation on politics or anything like that every day, so I can just basically say like, well, I don't really want to talk about that, and that's done. But when it's art, it's always tough, because sometimes an artist like yourself doesn't even know that you're actually creating something that might be incendiary to certain groups that like. Yeah. So censoring yourself is actually harder as an artist, because you might not even know that you're pressing a button until, like, sometimes decades after you created a piece of art, and go like, oh crap, that's what I meant to. Oh. But somebody else might be able to see that, as opposed to like you're just like in a coffee house and you talk to somebody and they're like, wait, what did you say? Or you make a vlog.
And that if you are operating under all those concerns, are you self-censoring without even realizing it? Because that's, I mean, that's the real talk. The insidiousness of censorship is not that anyone's knocking on your door saying, hey, cut that out, but that the government issues kind of vague standards that are then up to you as the entity or the platform you're publishing on or whatever to enforce, and the nebulousness is what kind of creates a culture of fear where people do get afraid to say something. And so you could maybe internalize that and be holding yourself back or pulling your punches. Maybe that's happening to us. I don't know. I mean, we talk about fairly silly things, so
well, yeah, and I think
that's helpful. We're not close to any hot button issues.
Well, and I say that as artists of like that. I mean, I watch all the vlogs and read all the blogs and people's papers and stuff, interviews that people do, and everyone says tons of things that are far more flammable than what we talk about.
Well, and foreigners do.
Yeah, they're foreigners are
because foreigners are held to a different standard than
right. That's what we're just talking about, foreigners that they say things that I'm just like, whoa, I can't believe they said that. Like, what I would never. But I also kind of bored by it, and I haven't actually worried about talking about those things. But like lots of people do wander into areas that they do stop themselves at some point, that they're realizing like, well, I don't really want to talk about this any further. And I'm like thinking like, I can't believe you went that far.
Yeah. But so, I mean, that's why you would not move to China to do art. But so why did we move to China to do art? a lot of it is financial. The fact is, we can work relatively little.
As an artist back home in America,
yeah,
you really don't have many choices. Like, you either have to hit the jackpot and become like, America's next top idol or something.
Yeah.
Or you sit around in a van with people as you grow old and tour around and make no money.
Yeah.
Or you use whatever your talent is to work for some kind of corporate entity, like I did, working for IT companies, or like we did for the media or something like that, which is, I'm using my art skill. I've made a career my entire life, essentially, of like being an illustrator. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, but I never had any passion for what I was doing. So in that world, and from what I hear from other artists that are there now, it's even harder than it was in the 90s and 2000s.
I mean, it's hard because if you're serious about art, fine art, or whatever, you're going to have to live in New York City probably, or near New York City, or maybe LA. There's not that, like, you need to be in those hubs, and if you're an artist and you don't live in those hubs and you're having a successful time of it, and you could not even imagine moving to one of the big cities, I'd love to hear about that. But it is like, you'd have to live in one of these metro areas that are now the most expensive places to live in the country. And to afford living there, we worked jobs that like didn't leave us time to do the art, and it's hard. The common advice is, like, if you like something artsy, do a job that's art adjacent. Like, so for Peter, it was graphic design, and for me, it was writing and journalism. And I don't like that advice, it turns out, because the energy is similar enough that it is like, if you work an 8-hour day writing, you don't want to come home and write more. But like, when I worked, before I got the job at the paper, I worked in a bookstore for a little bit. If I worked an 8-hour day just clerking at a bookstore, I could come home and I'd have plenty of stuff to write. But you can't work at a bookstore and afford an apartment on the Upper East Side. Not very long. Yeah. And so it is, and maybe that's just me, but I kind of feel like, no, like, if you're using that writing energy all day, you don't have any left for your own project. So I think that's actually not good advice. Get a job doing something different, and then save all your writing for you, if that's what you want to do.
The like, using the New York example of, like, you for the 60s and 50s, 60s, 70s, and everyone getting pushed out from pushing the poor people out of the Bowery down into the Village, out into Brooklyn, and to the point where, like, we can't even afford to live in Brooklyn on working artist salaries for major, like, companies, like that. It's just not even, like, a feasible thing. But you have to be in the city so that you can network with those people to find the jobs. If you work all day long at a job doing whatever it is artistic adjacent, then you're in the city for that job, but you're also there for findings, your gallery show, or your reading, or something that you're doing, or your comedy troupe, or whatever that you're doing, your rock show that you're going to play with your band in the night. But you're too tired to do that by the end of the day because you spent the whole day at your day job, and meanwhile you still can't afford to live there. Yeah,
because the art adjacent jobs also still don't pay very well.
Yeah.
But so that was our frustrations of living in New York. And so coming over here, it was the original deal we took was like working the public school teaching jobs here for foreigners are generally about 20 hours a week. If you work for a training school, it can be more. It can be as much as you want. You could work like 80 hours a week. They would love you to work 80 hours a week. I don't know why you would move here to work 80 hours a week.
There's a conception that, I mean, a lot of people that do go overseas for, especially, I guess, ESL kind of things, but like that you have the possibility that you can, whatever, make up your school loans or something like that. Like, a lot of people fall short and they come over and they go and have fun. They spend all their money. But you could come to even a place like China and squirrel away everything you have. You live so cheaply that, like, you could pay off your debts, probably get together enough money to I don't know, do something with it, like, but it's a lot of work. Otherwise, like us, it gives us a chance to like not work as much.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that, yeah, we can work essentially what's a part-time job and have decent salaries and have a good lifestyle and have the time that we need to do art. But I think also why teaching for us particularly worked out is because we're pretty shy people, and so it's not like we would go out and make friends on our own. And teaching actually like helped us feel really plugged into a community without like having to go out and
Especially
I don't know, talk to strangers. I don't know, how do people make friends? So it is like,
especially in the first few years when we lived on campus,
Yeah,
so all of our
yeah.
friends were kids.
and the teachers a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, mostly we talked to the kids,
Kids.
but it also like it felt like we were in a position of trust because we were like, when we would go out and people at restaurants would ask us what we did and we'd say we taught at 𝗵𝗵cie Middle School, they would be like, they would like that answer. They would like be happy that we were there and happy that we were part of teaching. They probably, if it was really competitive school to get into, so if their kids didn't go there, maybe they knew kids who did go there, and like it was, so we.
Or they would round up their kids at dinner from around the hall to like come.
Right,
like,
right,
go talk to
right.
them now. Go talk to
So
them.
it was like we had an excuse to jump right into the community that I think if we were, well, definitely if we were just traveling through, it would not have been that kind of connection with people. And I think so that gave us like immediately this access to this world that kind of changed our perspectives on life.
Well, like when you're talking like as opposed to just traveling through, like we're just here for 6 months, or I don't even know what it would be like to come here like on vacation for 6 weeks and just travel from town to town. But that we are, because I see it now, like when we get in a cab or we meet somebody new, they ask, of course, like how long you've been here, and when you're like, we're going on 8 years, they're just like, oh, well, then you're fine.
yeah, it's not like we're just like interloping strangers who showed up. Like, we're, and you know, maybe this isn't everybody's experience, but this is our experience. And I think that was important for us in that, like, so we came here, the plan was we work these shorter hours, have a good life, and then I was gonna write a novel and Peter was gonna paint.
Yeah,
they were vague plans to do art.
And travel.
And I think
We did travel.
we did the travel, and that was a
blog.
lot of fun. Yeah, we started a blog, a word blog.
Word walk. Word picture.
At hellouncleforeigner.com. It's still up. You can go read about our first couple years, or all of our years. But in that meantime, I think that's where stuff started. Like, I didn't write that novel. I have a draft of a novel that maybe one day I'll come back to. But we didn't. I opened it up a couple times and it didn't go anywhere.
And it's mutated now into videos and.
Yeah, I think that our first couple years in China was gathering this material and this experience, and not that we couldn't gather material and experience in New York, but like you don't need to read another literary Brooklyn consideration of you know,
even the stuff
that you don't need to read about being a writer in Brooklyn, and that's what I would have written if we had stayed in Brooklyn, if I had written anything at all,
or anything, TV, music, painting, everything that we would like watch as our peers that are doing back home, that is exactly what we would be doing, and it's what we love to watch too.
Yeah.
We watch stories about artists that live in New York and are
And I'm not putting that story down at all.
But we've already been there. We did that, and we look at those stories, and we're like, oh well. I mean, of course, we relate to that. Meanwhile, over here, we're like, oh, we've got a completely different story, rather than like no one else has this story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in like everyone else has the story of the New York artists trying to make it. So
yeah,
I mean, whether we're successful at telling our story is a whole different thing. But like at least it's unique.
Yeah, and I mean we're at a place where we're not high profile enough for anybody to care what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we do tell local friends here what we're doing, and this is true, and when we frame it this way of like we we're inspired by Luzhou, so we want to make work about what Luzhou feels like to us. Our friends are excited. They're proud of their city, and they're proud that like foreigners find it interesting, and they appear to be supportive of the idea that we'd like share Luzhou with the rest of the world.
And it isn't just because that this is where we landed and we just got safe here. We landed here. We stayed longer than we thought because we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then when we decided that like, okay, we need to grow and move on, and moved on to another place, we're like, we don't like it there that much.
Yeah, so we left.
We've been to cities and lots of places all over the country that were like, well, that's neat to visit. But when we decided we're coming back to Luzhou, it was more like, oh, it's because we like Luzhou. It's not just that like we're stuck here kind of thing.
Yeah, and it inspires us.
It's a beautiful city.
So, yeah, I mean that's it. All worked out for us. I think the one thing that is a little bit frustrating is that it's not Paris. We don't have a community of filmmakers here. Mm-hmm. We have big
or
plans.
Artists or a museum or a good place to see shows.
Yeah, we have plans to like kind of see if there's anyone to network with, but we haven't found really anyone so far. We made a dinner date that got canceled. But yeah, so
and
that's
to find collaborators. We might have to like import people from other cities. Like, Chongqing and Chengdu are both cities on either side of us, only a few hours apart from us, that both have vibrant university scenes with galleries. And shows and stuff.
So there is. We do have to travel to get any sense of that, but I think the sequestration, being sequestered, was kind of what I wanted and needed, and I think you feel similar.
Well, it gave us a peace of mind and something else to look at rather than and that's the thing.
And that's very personality driven though.
Yeah.
Like you might be a person who would go crazy with that, but for me, I really enjoyed like after being bossed around for a decade at a newspaper and like being told my instincts weren't correct, like getting back to me and finding my voice.
And when I look at
it was really nice.
What all the other Westerners are vlogging and blogging and podcasting about and everything, I swear they live in a different China than we do. Like, I don't really identify with what most people are saying. Like they sound to me like they're talking about like, I mean, they're in Beijing, they're in Shanghai. They sound to me like they're living back in America.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, all fantastic things. They're going to art galleries, they're going to shows,
Yeah.
they're like eating hamburgers.
Yeah.
Like those are all wonderful things. And I'm just like, the problems that they have and the things that they enjoy are like, we're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's neat.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's.
But I mean, that's part of what we chose.
Yeah, that was our trade-off. Because,
Yeah.
it would be awesome to live in Shanghai.
But,
but we'd be facing the same problems that we're facing in New York.
Yeah, we would love to live in Hong Kong, but it's more expensive to live there than in New York. But there's also a better scene there too.
Yeah.
We would spend so much money that we wouldn't be able to do our art once again. But way out here in the middle of nowhere, that gets us back around to like, why are you not only in China, but why are you in the middle of nowhere of China? Like, because we can basically spend most of our time. When 1 month a year, it is one of us, you, has to work for full time for a month. It's like, well, the rest of the time we can just wander around sampling coffee and writing scripts.
Yeah, and so and from a business perspective, if your art was your business, maybe this wouldn't make sense. But I think to us, like, it's more of like, do we live an artful life is what we're trying to go for. And like, it will be bonus if we can start making money from it. But like, when I think about...
We're making stories.
Yeah, when I think about life in terms of like, your reality is what you're paying attention to and what you're experiencing, I'm having a good life. So, it's success already. We've made our own definition of success and fulfilled it.
And when we did push things the other way by moving to Lijiang, which was up in the mountains, even though it's a tourist town, it was definitely, we were living amongst goats. We were always dirty. I mean, we had a nice apartment and everything, but like, it was definitely like, we pushed it too far. Well,
Oh yeah, the seclusion can go too far.
Yeah.
we had a hot water heater that was solar powered, but the sun never came out. So it was
and
like
we lived next to a mountain that was just a mountain of always mountain goats that just went up the side and yelled in our window all day. It was just, and we lived on a dirt
which
road.
is disturbing if you don't know what goats sound like. They sound like
Dying old men.
Yeah, no, it's not like a cute little. It like sounds like an old man is having a conniption next door, and like
like call 911.
Like an upsetting thing is happening to an old man. That's what goats sound like.
But there's no 911.
Yeah, well, it's one.
Well, I don't know about Emilykhulme. I don't think we're getting any ambulances coming up to where we live anytime soon.
Oh no. No.
So yeah, but we pushed it too far that way. And we're like, okay, Luzhou is a pretty comfortable place where, I mean, if you need a Burger King, you can still find a Burger King.
Yeah. So I think like that's our experience has been like we defined what we were looking for.
We have one Burger King.
You're obsessed with Burger King.
It's terrible.
But I'm to generalize. Well, if there's advice, I don't know why I've turned this into advice, but this is my term paper. This is my term papering. Like, we need a conclusion of. It's that like not like, hey, move to China. That's the best move for you. But like we're pretty definitive about what we were looking for and our needs, while also being open to like how could we fulfill them in a way that's maybe not standard. And that turned out to be Luzhou for us.
Well, we also don't have, like, there's nobody in our face, but, like, the general media that filters through our VPN, which usually works. We usually get feedback from the world. And is something very accusatory of, like, you moved to China because you thought you were going to live a super easy life and you'd be rich over there. And you're a fool because you're not really a teacher, you're a scab, and that you are just living a fool's life because you're never going to get any kind of, you can't become a resident, you can't become a citizen, like you it's not a real life to have. And that's not the reason why those of us that stay here for long term is not, like, we don't want to become Chinese citizens. It's not
not looking for that.
Yeah. The purpose of being here is more of, like, at the moment right now we're building something and it's easier to build it here, and for us it's art. I mean, it's not we're not building, a Pizza Hut or something.
And then along the way we both have kind of grown up with the idea of like it's a good thing if the peoples of the world get along. And you traveled a lot and I traveled a lot when we were younger, and so like we're interested in different cultures, and to us before we came there's really, I mean, we talk a lot in mainstream American discussion. China's much more on people's minds, and not for good reasons, but like in 2011 when we were coming here, we knew about Foxconn factory making Apple stuff and child labor. That's like what we knew about China and pandas.
We had like BON CCTV or something like that if you had decent cable you could.
But it was like it was hard.
News.
I couldn't picture what our life was going to be like before we left, and now I think there's a lot more information available to you.
That was a time too, also when all the bloggers were stopping blogging because blogging was dead. And there was I think 2 vloggers in China that was doing anything, so you couldn't actually see anything on a ground level that's happening.
Right.
And anything on a high level was already like.
But that unknown was attractive to us, and part of the adventure of like we're not totally happy with the trajectory of our life right now. Let's blow it all up. We think that will be fruitful, and it was. But I recognize also that that's not for everybody. We had a friend who, at the time, a different friend, when we told him what we were doing, and we were like all excited about like, we only have to work 20 hours a week and it'll be so great, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't know. Oh, and I think I said something like, anybody could do it. And he was like, I couldn't do it. And we were like, took a minute, like, yeah, you couldn't do it. You wouldn't do this. And so that was always like a good touchstone for us to remember. Like this is not for everybody.
Yeah, and that's why we don't like advise other people to do it. Like we've had one friend that came here, and we were, and a couple others that have thought, but we were like definitely like, really think this over, because like I really don't know if this is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise this for anybody. In fact,
well,
most
like
people
the
have said
nature
no.
of your questions makes me think that this isn't for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, the one friend we got to come, she left after 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and that was in Lijiang, which again is a very hard place. Because I think a lot of people that do come here, especially now that it's changed and there is more information, I think there's a good confusion of like, oh, that sounds great, I'll move to China for a while, and like, but I think people are still, maybe even a younger generation that has more chances to do something like this, are looking for Thailand or Taiwan or like and not realizing that like, you know, this is China, or they're looking for the big city, and that's why most of the other people, like I say, that like I'm watching other vloggers, and everyone is telling about their lives in the big city, and I'm like, well, that sounds great. It sounds like you're living in New York. New York was a great place to live.
Although even in the big city, like the concert ends at 10.
Yeah,
the band stops playing. It's over.
It's definitely different than New York. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But what we're doing out here is like, I don't, and you know, we're older and we're more settled, so we're not like looking like we're not single and living apart that are going out like we need to find new friends and we're not the social animals that would need to go out in Beijing and need to go to concerts, and like, you know, we just are happy that we have a coffee house that has good coffee.
Yeah, that's our current vice. But yeah, so that's how living in China works for us.
For us. Well, as artists, I think is the main thing that like, because something that like we don't really see anyone that like, people move here, and maybe this is part of like thinking it's Thailand or something like that, like if you have any kind of artistic bent, it's usually that you're a DJ or something that like you're looking for like a party scene or something like that, and not necessarily.
That's not here. Here's not the right place to come for that.
Yeah, it's not like a place for fine arts and you know, again, in Beijing there's more chances of like that, especially if you're going to university. But like when we were like, well, why don't we actually find anybody that's moving here for art? Because you could do what we've done of being able to save money and work on your art. Why isn't anyone doing that? Like, well, why would anyone go live up a tree to make a
Right. Well, yeah, I think because that's what we were looking for. What I was looking for, I'll speak for just for myself, was leave me alone and let me do my thing. And that's not the way everybody works, I understand. Mm-hmm. And it, like even if that is you still have to choose the right job situation, because the job we got when we started was very like, there were some hiccups, miscommunications, but it was like, you go to class, do whatever, and that's cool. And like, I like that situation. But if you don't like being just totally thrown in the deep end and like being left, maybe they throw you a life raft. But like, yeah, so in my work situation, it was just like, get your job done and we won't bother you. And then like, then I had plenty of time to be left alone. But that's what I wanted.
Yes,
and that's not what everybody wants.
Even living on campus with all the kids, we still like, I mean, we took maybe a year to figure it out, but we were essentially free-range chickens that were like, go to where you're supposed to be for class, and then afterwards you can just wander around, just make sure you're back here. Because
I did have another job that was much more invasive, and this was in private teaching, like, they would call at all hours and be like, come do this. Oh, we need you to file this paperwork, blah, 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 blah. And like, so that kind of destroyed any kind of leave me alone and let me do my thing, and then I'll leave and I won't think of you.
Yeah.
But now, happily, I'm back in a situation where it is like, I do my job at my job, and when I come home, for the most part, they don't bother me.
Even here in China, where things they're hard to pin down because stuff changes so quickly. Our first few years, there was plenty of times where, like, you get a surprise vacation. So we were like,
Yeah,
okay.
that was a dream.
So we would just like kind of on a lark just be like, oh, well, I guess we have the day off and we have the next 5 days off. Like, well, let's wander down to Hong Kong or something. And somewhere in the middle of that, our boss might call us and be like, hey, we're having like a show. We wanted to see if you wanted to show up and could you come into the auditorium? And we're like, we're on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, well, whatever.
Yeah. So that was nice.
Yeah, those days.
Those were the days. You want to go on to commentary?
Commentary is happening now.
We've got 5 videos that we published this week. Let's start with the simplest one, China 2011-2012, which is a music video featuring footage from our first years here in 2011 and 2012. It was all shot on, we bought like the second cheapest camera at the store. Photo camera, not a video camera, but it had
Ancient digital.
I mean, it was yeah, it had video capabilities, so we tried them out sometimes.
And you can look at the video, and even though I cleaned it up as best as possible with today's technology, it's got 2011 archive richness to it.
Yeah, and so it has the it's not great camera quality. It's our first experiments at these were just like shots for us, not with any kind of art in mind. Yeah, really.
But it's nice to have that kind of material laying around, and we were like, well, what do we do? We've used it in a few videos here and there, but like by just putting them together, it makes for good for just visual background for our music stuff that we've scored for the videos. So it's a music video, but we happen to have this material of us, our first days visiting the sad zoo here in town, what our kids are playing in basketball and things like that.
And it's interesting because that was almost 8 years ago. Some of it, a lot of that Luzhou does not exist anymore.
Yeah, for that reason, like it actually has archival
there is
footage.
There is a real archive. Although if you don't live in Luzhou, that has no meaning for you. Okay. Maybe that's what you think like China looks like today. Maybe you live in another part of more modern China, where you're like, I don't even believe that's China from this decade.
Right. But I think that's part of like why titling that one just China 2011-12 is just the very least for us. I mean, you could possibly be, one of our students. We had stuff that we filmed some of our interviews with our students back on campus that they've looked at recently and was like, oh my God, that was me. Like, they don't even recognize themselves. So that's fun stuff.
And the song that goes with it is Some Clothes.
Yeah. Same clothes.
Same clothes. Oh yeah, because I buy the same clothes as we all shop at the same store, so I'll be wearing the same clothes as a lot of people at the gym. Specifically at the gym, but sometimes in life too. That
was the video that the music was written for.
Yeah. And I like it because it's a very like loungy piece.
Exotica.
Yeah. And so that's a good little video. I recommend it.
Proud of it.
So let's go on. Let's talk about the 3 Peter says together. So there's 3 separate videos here. Why swim in China, feeling at home, and hospital in China.
Does this actually include? Because we did bucket, right, last time.
We did bucket last time. Okay. Yeah. And then Zongsa I want to talk about separately. So those 3. So as you may have noticed, if you're a regular watcher of our channel, Peter is now he's here. And so this is his character that he's developing, that we're developing together. Who is,
because we both write it.
Yeah, it was the premise, as you may tell, is that Peter is a know-it-all explaining things to you, but the things
I'm the Jordan Peterson of hell.
Don't say that. He has all these explanations for you, but they are actually like what a maniac would think, and not just like, oh, because he's not PC, but because like they're just ridiculous things to say. Go watch the videos. And Why Swim in China was actually kind of inspired by the summer, but there's a video from last summer where I talk about my friend at the police college talked about being on dead body duty for the river. Like people swim in the Yangtze River here, and people die doing that. But we thought that was a little bit heavy, so we took that but changed it into that, like, you could be swept out to Chongqing and then you'd have to start a new life in a new city if you went swimming.
Yeah, the idea of this series is not necessarily like, it could be seen as parody or satirical or mean-spirited towards the foreigner or possibly Chinese, if you depending on the way
I mean, I'm sure you could interpret this as being mean to whoever.
So, somebody's going to be upset.
Yeah.
But our idea is that these are actually based around the absurdities that we witness and how we react to them. Like these are taken from something that we've seen, and we just kind of twist them and so to deal with them. Yeah, the idea that like every day we walk down to the river and we go, oh wow, it's the Yangtze, it's a famous river, and we live on it, and it's what. And then like years later to find out like, yeah, we're always fishing dead bodies. Like, So there's a whole story there that like we find the idea of people explaining, and not just China explaining, but
explaining things like, why would you need to explain that people swim?
Yeah. So yeah, we're taking it to the absurd side of like why and it's not just YouTube, it's all mainstream media, it's all of your friends. Everyone has an answer, and we're all probably half wrong about whatever we're talking about. So we're just living in that age, and this is kind of our commentary on this splainer lifestyle.
Yeah, but that it's all rooted in a grain of truth is why we think it can work. Like, for example, feeling at home, how to put pictures on your walls. We really do have a problem getting stuff. We like to hang stuff on our walls where we like to look at a nice home, and nothing sticks to the walls. It's been an 8-year struggle of stuff falling off the walls. We tried nails. We bought these special 3M contact hooks that are supposed to stick to anything, and they do not. We brought them back from America.
We're artists. I'm a painter. You're an art critic from New York City newspapers. Like we're people that want to decorate. And every apartment that we've been into, we've tried. But the way that they're constructed are these concrete walls that don't have any kind of give or take at all to actually put stuff on. And it's not just us; it's all apartments and even Chinese people. Like to essentially get anything on the wall, you do have to hire somebody to come in with a big drill, and they have to like fasten it with all kinds of mechanisms to put anything on the wall. So essentially what happens, especially for a lot of foreigners, is you just leave the walls blank, or you get some crappy tape and you put up posters of maps from map stores. If you look at almost anybody's apartment on any vlogger or pictures from any foreigner, like there's just maps of China all over the walls, and they're usually falling half off.
We have that too. We have that too, down to that they're also falling off the wall.
Yep.
And so there's a real nugget of real frustration there, but that actually, like, we don't want to just complain. And it also,
well, we laugh at it. We think it's funny.
And so what's funny about that is let's take that to an extreme. And so that's Peter is the extreme, absurd extreme of like things that we really do, things that really happen to us, or things that we really think about. And so that's been going well.
We've explained things in creepy, unsettling ways.
Yeah, like hospital in China was inspired by, we had gone, and
we always go to the hospital.
We always go to the hospital. And because it's not the same as America. Healthcare in China is all the doctors are at the hospital. So even if you're making an appointment for a regular checkup or something, you go to the hospital. So that's just, don't be alarmed. But we had been at the hospital the day before, and then we're like, we already attempted to kind of address in a realistic way a visit to the hospital in our pharmacy skit a few months earlier. What if we don't want to repeat ourselves, but there's more funny stuff that happens there. What if What if you end up talking about at-home cloning? And that's where we took that.
Well, and I think that's one of when we are looking at what we were saying earlier, that when we came here there was only a couple people doing blogging, and now there's just tons of us, and we're all basically like sending home, our flashcard, like here's how things are going over here kind of information, to say something different about it rather than us just everybody repeating the same thing. We've been here like enough where that stuff's kind of boring for us to talk about or think about, but there's still funny things about it, so we're trying to tap into our own personal commentary of like why these things are funny, why they're weird, why they're absurd, why they make sense, but like if they're rooted in some kind of truth and we're just taking it, we're telling the stories essentially. Of what we're trying to figure out how to do, trying to be entertaining in some offbeat way that is more in tune with our sense of humor rather than just telling people the facts of like, this is how China works, you go and you stand this line and you do it for this long, or no, we do that, but we're also like, while we're in line, we're making jokes about like, what if we just took our blood like at home and walked around with it? Like,
and so it's also to transition into 𝗖𝗵cie, which features both of us. This is a return to our fictional dialoguing that we did a little bit of in we filmed it in February, but we didn't put it up. I forget when we put it up. But anyway, so this one is a return to writing a fictional scene with the both of us, but this time around, whereas the earlier series were focusing on story structure, right now we're exclusively working on character. And so there is a germ of an idea that like people give each other 𝗖𝗵cie. With Dragon Boat Festival, we had a lot of 𝗖𝗵cie on hand. These 𝗖𝗵cie are little glutinous rice dumplings, but
wrapped in banana leaves.
What if we just like reacted to that in these characters that we were developing? There's not even a story or maybe even a conflict. We're just like goofing, which is, and down the line, once we figure out character, we'll add story structure back in. But right now, really, what we're focusing is on the characters, and like both in the writing of it, how do we write like just solidly funny jokes, and then like taking those jokes and acting them.
What we found is really just enjoyable for us to do is trying to write characters because neither of us are actually interested in vlogging. It's a boring thing to do. I mean, other people might find it really interesting to do and to watch, but like both of us are like, we would rather spend our times creating exciting new worlds that we enjoy inhabiting rather than just like documenting what is happening. So rather than follow each other around with a camera and going like, look what she's doing now, we're like, imagine if she had wings when she did this.
Because also,
so it's just for fun for us.
We both feel like we're normal people, although people in our lives have told us differently. But we're really interested in like the weird character, and so this is our kind of exploration of how do we take, and it's turning out to be like it has to be something that's part of you already, and just heighten it. Is what's been working. But like, where can we take this idea of just complete maniacs? Because we think that's funny. That's really the justification of it. That's the whole motivation behind it. Is like we're making each other laugh, and so maybe we're making you laugh too. But like where do these characters come from?
And it's also something that we're finding with personally from like just being alive on a planet is frustrating. But being in a foreign country can oftentimes be frustrating, and one way to alleviate that is the catharsis of just kind of like, let's write this in a funny way. Let's take something that was like really stressful earlier that day, and let's just like turn it on its ear and be like, this is ridiculous that we're living this kind of scenario. And find the joke in there, and then try to put that out rather than us like make videos of like, oh I'm so mad right now. Let's turn on the camera. Like, you know what's the problem when this happened? I try to get a taxi cab, and no one's like, okay, we're writing taxi cabs.
Right. But even beyond just let's make our complaint into a joke, it's like how would a real weirdo react to this, and where would they take it? Because it is even like, it's already happened to us. That's we don't want to just straight up revisit it, even if we can just twist it to make it funny. How do we twist it and make it funny, and then like take it even further than that?
Yeah, when you look at, I mean, because both of us are big fans of comedians, and when you look at some of the great character kind of people like 𝗖𝗵cie or Mitch Hedberg or something like that, they're taking you down that route of like, life is weird. What if it got weirder?
Yeah.
And then it becomes an exciting more twist of like, now I'm not just,
life is annoying already. I don't need to tell you that.
Yeah, you know.
Let me point out like how weird it is too, and that we enjoy that weirdness. So I'm making this up right now, but then we're spinning it into a positive.
Yeah. What is that? It is a Chinese philosophical proverb of, may you live in interesting times.
Oh yeah. May you live in weird times.
It's a curse, isn't it? Actually,
it is a curse. Yeah. Interesting times are not a good thing.
But they're interesting.
Yeah, and then from the technical side of 𝗖𝗵cie, we've been having a little trouble because we have cheap, crappy lavalier mics, and so in this situation, we're sitting in the coffee shop. We just filmed in the coffee shop. One camera, two mics, and the mics pick each other up, and then that causes like
we'll slap back
echo when we mix it together. So that's a problem on the technical side that we're working on solving. That's actually what I bought those adapters for. In the customer service segment, where they only sent one, and I said I ordered two. So now we have two. We don't have any scripts for two coming up.
We'll update you on that worked out over now.
Yeah, so it's an interesting problem to solve, but
even with that we've taken these characters down of like, so you have a little bit less time because you've got to work more for the summer. We're also interested in building characters from a writing point of view. Like, how do we write people that people are interested in watching? But even there's still technical aspects of like, or even like filming and being like, okay, how do we set up like natural lights? Oh, that's giving you a headache. Now we got to switch everything into this area. Okay, but now the sound doesn't work. All right, but then now there's that background if you're just facing the bathroom. Like, what? All these little technical things that seem simple. Like, why don't you just turn the camera on and talk? Well, like, we're actually trying to figure out how to make it sound really good. Like, you could. Today's technology is amazing. You just turn your phone on and you have a vlog.
Yeah.
And that's where we've decided, like, we're not stopping there. Let's take bad equipment and figure out how to make that look as good as possible.
Right.
And I mean, even now that we bought gizmos like the tracking thing,
the gimbal,
or green screen, or like we have gizmos to make it look fancier.
Yeah.
But even with that stuff, like, let's figure out how do we make the characters better and use that other stuff as those special effects are like. Does it sound good? That's a special effect these days.
Well, that's where the small bites approach, I think, is. I mean, we're focused mostly on writing right now, and we're focused on the characters. But it is like every week we're figuring out something new, just kind of as a matter of course on the technical side of things. Because I'm reading the Filmmaker's Handbook is what it's called, and it's an encyclopedic run through of everything you need to know about the filmmaking industry, from equipment, I'm mired in descriptions of like screen resolutions right now, to every part of how to make a film. I think even down into the end to like selling it and getting it just distributed. But it's very dry, and if I was only reading that, or if I was only watching a tutorial, but we weren't shooting anything of our own, like that information is no good. You need the practical lab to go along with the increased information that you have. And I think that's where a 1 minute, 2 minute piece is a low pressure way of like, oh, I'm going to try out this new technique I just read about. And if it works, then that's part of our repertoire. And if it doesn't work, it didn't ruin anything because that take was 2 minutes long. We'll do it again. I think even if you're not, even if the craft is not your primary focus, even if the technical craft is not your primary focus at the moment, you can. We're still like through not osmosis. There is a component of activity.
Yeah, but you're lowering the stakes.
Yeah. And so it is. It's not like we're only going to get better at writing. We're going to get better at all of it.
Yeah.
And when in a couple months, if we switch back to like, we're really going to make sure the sound is the best sound we can ever get. We'll still get better at writing because we'll still be doing that. So it is like, again, the value of constantly making work. That's how you get better.
Yeah, I think like just to use like something I know like practicing like an instrument or something. If you sit there and you practice your guitar, you could just sit there and you could play scales up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and you get better at playing your scales. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get better at playing music. Whereas in this is like you are actually practicing your scales. You're setting up your lights. You're setting up your sound. You're working on. You have to work on so many things at the same time that everything levels up all at the same time.
Yeah, or to take it even further, if you were reading about practicing guitar, like that wouldn't make you better at guitar.
Yeah.
But if you were doing all that and performing songs as well, everything's going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's going on
This week.
To go back to Peter Says, which is now so we've broken down now that we have this character-based focus right now, where we have the different playlists you can see on our homepage. Peter Says, Emily Says, Giraffe Says, and then the Real China Vlogs are multi-segmented pieces that incorporate all of the characters, or some of the characters, to give you options of how to engage with us. But I think in the creation of Peter Says, and in part of that characterization, most of it is writing. Whereas like a few months ago and last year, a lot of what we were doing was like improvising, and then in post-production, Peter was adding a lot of fancy effects to make it like kind of a trippy experience, or to make something weird out of what was actually a pretty straightforward
sound design.
Blah 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 blah. Right now, we're focusing on writing the character, and the filming is pretty simple. We take one continuous take, and I feed Peter line by line and film it, and then it's a fairly straightforward edit, would you say?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of post processing, but
it's just like hyping it up, like you do anything like with like I even any kind of interview process. If you're watching like whatever reality show or something, you're watching Gordon Ramsay or something like that. There's like 100 interviews were taken, and somebody's just like chop 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 chop.
Yeah, you're creating the timing, and you're rebuilding the script, but you're not like messing with the visuals or like distorting anything. I mean
I've turned it black and white as if it's.
Yes, you've turned it black and white, and you've added transitions, but you're not like stretching out the picture or adding 100 views or like some of the fairly intricate tricks we were doing. This is a fairly straightforward job, but I think something that is part of the characterization of Peter Says is your thumbnails. Having that kind of punchy question, the text being part of the thumbnail, which we've taken text off of our other thumbnails, I think fits the characterization of that you are an advice guy, that you are offering some supposed expertise.
And in tandem with the description themselves, they're deliberately going for. When we were just talking about this, like this is kind of like a bear report.
Yeah.
Character building of like we're going for the clickbait. We do want you to click on this thinking like, oh, I'm going to learn how do I go to the hospital in China, and then you're going to like get this wackadoo story of a maniac.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I could. Well, you said like if people click on it and are annoyed, you don't care.
Right. Yeah, it's no skin off our back because we're more amusing ourselves. And if you've been here for a while, it might amuse you too, because you'll what you're expecting is just another story of like, yeah, you have to go to the doctor, you do step A, step B, their instructions.
And we're not hiding that information from you. A real video about how to go to the hospital still exists. And
there's probably 40 of them in the side of the video that you're watching from us. So like, there's that information is just kind of. In fact, ideally what I'd like to see is that you are looking for this information. You watch 3 videos of actually how do you go to the hospital, and you click on ours, and you're like, oh, thanks. I could laugh for a minute.
Yeah. I'm so bored of what I'm researching.
Yeah.
Okay, back to work.
Yeah. Just as something different to add to the landscape.
Yeah, but again, the thumbnail and the packaging of that is also part of creating that world of this guy as he considers himself an authority.
Yeah.
But also we think it's obvious, like, you should not consider him an authority. As you watch, that will unfold.
Don't take advice.
Yeah.
Or do and tell us what happened, because that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Did your thermos...
A blood spill all over?
Did they accept your thermos of blood at the hospital? And did you get the excess blood back? But that's all that I have to say about that.
All right, so what's next?
Let's go to Watch It.
Watch it.
So last week we told you to watch some Monty Python and Mr. Show.
Did you?
I hope that you did and you're prepared for this week's discussion. Sketch was on our minds for the past couple months because that's kind of what we were trying to do. And we're still trying to do, but now we're focusing on one sketch at a time versus trying to put together 6 or 7 in one episode. And Monty Python, why not start there? They're a classic for a reason. And then we kind of... I did not watch this when it was originally on, but we are watching it now. Mr. Show is 90s?
Somewhere in there. Must have been late 90s.
It was a 90s...
Or mid-90s, I don't know.
Sketch show that
I was at Lollapalooza.
we think, kind of has a direct through line from Monty Python. And what we liked about both programs is that they're silly. They're just super silly. But watching them with an eye toward structure, both of them, and I think non-coincidentally, Mr. Show, if you ask Bob and David, are probably big Monty Python fans, had both of them employed a really tight structure to their silliness.
Yeah, there's definitely like a rigorous craft to like I might just be talking about. Maybe it starts as some kind of satire or parody. A lot of times, particularly with Mr. Show, it's definitely angry towards society.
Yeah.
But if you're starting with that premise and you're taking it to the ridiculous standpoint, though, it just gets sillier and sillier. But then when you look at the craft of how an entire episode goes together, like there's definitely like there's work there that's rigorous and detailed.
Yeah, and I think the key is in the transitions of like Mr. Show will have like a scene acting out and then a phone will, like a home scene, and the phone will ring, and then we'll follow the other side of the phone call, and that will take us off into something else, and then that will be framed as a news report, and then the news report will report on the next story, which then launches you into the next.
Which isn't like an SNL or even Kids in the Hall, where it's a series of skits, and sometimes they like envelope into each other, but this actually makes it more. Both of them, Python and Show, and there's other examples too. It makes it a lot more musical, and like it is like a rap opera, or like there's a whole story that goes together. You're buying a concept album. An episode itself.
A concept album is a good way to describe it, because it is. I mean, the stuff they're talking about is so silly that it would feel inconsequential if there was no. If it was just like silly idea, and they didn't have any relation to each other, I think that the show would have less weight. But that they are connected, there is kind of a cleverness to the connection.
Which is like
and maybe that's a cop out.
well, like any classic, like particularly like with stand-up, like the one continuity thing that you have is I forget what the what do you call it, but
The callback.
the callback,
Yeah.
your last singer, where you're just like blink, and everyone goes, "Oh no, you see how he did that?" Like, if you do that for an entire half hour worth of show, where there's continuously something that calls back to something else that refers to another thing that we've already developed, like that show itself has now become its own entity that like you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can chop it up and put it on YouTube, but like it's still meant to sit down and watch that episode. It's not like, because that's the thing I guess now we've talked about with SNL or something, or Jimmy Kimmel, is that like you can, Conan is deliberately built that way now, like just so you can chop out these little bits.
Oh
and watch
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Whereas in you really missing the entire finesse of an entire
Well,
episode.
it's greater than the sum of its parts because of that interrelation.
Yeah.
And I mean that also has the benefit of that you don't have to end a sketch,
Yeah.
which is like long been. I mean, for any medium, endings are hard, but specifically for sketch, people are not good at ending a sketch.
It's really hard to
and
do.
so they don't. They just flow into the next sketch.
I watching plenty of not just vlogs, but like all kinds of videos I see on YouTube, because we're all, you know, on some level some kind of amateur, but even like fairly professional ones, or even stuff like SNL. There is a continuous, like, we didn't think of an ending. Oh, that's a joke. That's not a joke. You didn't actually think of an ending, and rather.
Well, and back to Python, like. They ended Holy Grail that way, but just saying like, we didn't end the movie, it's over.
Yeah. So now that's like some kind of like meme that every person that's putting a whole movie on YouTube can do. Like that's a valid excuse of like, we didn't think of an ending.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah. Shows.
Yeah.
We've done it too. But.
Yeah, we've done it too. And I think where we kind of applied that, not the ending, but the through line, the continuity idea. Was haircut with the cherry runner and then structuring it around the haircut. We didn't necessarily have sketches drift into the next sketch, but we did have like the recurring motif that like kept each thing feeling of a piece rather than like, because that actually is how we wrote it. Like these are random ideas we had this week.
Yeah, and we were in production while we were doing these things at the same time. You were getting a haircut, and we were also buying and eating cherries. So like, let's make the whole thing together as one. Like that's what we did that week. We got haircuts and ate cherries.
Yeah, which I guess
which is why I still feel valid of like we are a vlog. We are composing a situation of quasi characters, but they are us and they are what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just putting them in a way that's hopefully. I mean, for us, it's entertaining. That's the main thing. Other people may be looking at it going like, "What?" And we've had plenty of people that are like, "What kind of drugs do you get in Sichuan?" And they're like, just us. We're just
yeah. Which I guess Python wasn't so much that each sketch would flow into the next like that. Sometimes they did that, but it was more maybe you'd have the motif of the lark. Or whatever, or the
lunch.
The pig with a gun or whatever. Like, but again, like instead of ending, sometimes it would just be like a pig has a gun.
Or the classic, the foot was stomped down.
Yeah. And that Terry Gilliam appeared to be working on a different show.
Yeah.
And not just appeared, but from accounts, it was like he would do his thing and they would put it in the episode. Yeah. Which is why.
Or vice versa, like they would tell him of like, okay, we're going to need a cat out of this. Just do something with the cat, and they'll come back and they'll be like, okay, I guess here's how the cat destroys the city in this episode. Okay, so when we open this scene, we're going to need a destroyed city because a cat just did it.
Yeah. But again, it gives a little bit of substance to what's often very silly, and just like allowing yourself to be silly. And I think Python is interesting to go back and watch in the context of not having a lot of money and resources. I don't think they had a lot of money to make that. And you can tell like from their sets.
Yeah, they're all very paper, cardboard. But the
Yeah.
BBC has always been like cheap on everything they've done.
Oh yeah,
Not to
it's
be
not
big,
not that it's remarkable, but
Yeah.
that like to see what they did with very little in the way of resources. And if you watch the credits, I mean, there's them as the writer performers, and then they have makeup, costumes, two BBC liaisons, and a composer maybe, and like that's it. They don't have a big staff, and even YouTube shorts have like 20-person staffs right now.
Part of the beauty of that is you do have these scenes like one of my favorites is always you throw the dummy off the roof, and it's just like literally like a fluff dummy with arms and legs and arms. Like it's a hilarious joke to watch because it's shocking.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, our body's going. Oh, look at that.
But if you watch, they don't have different angles. They have the one angle and a flat set. Because they don't have more set. They don't have. So they keep it just like a static. It's a lot of static talking head. So then a lot of it is in a funny reaction to something happening off camera sometimes.
Or simple like close-ups of. I mean, all of them work great with facial expressions as much as their bodies. So like you could just like be stagnant on like Lisa's face, and then he just twists it in a way that's like, oh my god, hilarious.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I mean, in the same kind of way of like when you watch like masters like Richard Pryor or George Carlin or Robin Williams, like they can move their bodies in a funny way on a stage and it's hilarious, but then they do these, they'll stop and, which is crazy. I mean, I've seen George Carlin in person on stage, and you know that his bits enough of like when he stops on stage, he's like half a mile away. You know he's got that face on, and you're just like, that's hilarious. And you see it, no, but you know his face is hilarious.
I know that his face is doing something hilarious. Yeah, which I guess that's something that we're trying out with these characters is like acting with your face.
Yeah.
And it is that we're taking it in a more cartoony realm, like because we're never gonna act out like serious characters that like I can convey something with a glance. But if I say something ridiculous and then I do a like,
and the fact that I mean, I know from an editing standpoint of like how to put these pieces together, and make them even more impactful in ways that like we don't have to. I mean, hopefully we'll always get better as actors.
Yeah,
I mean, not
yeah.
trying to be great actors, but like it is a
well,
skill that we're working
it's a
on
means
now,
to an end. We don't have other actors. We got to get better at doing it ourselves
And
to serve the larger purpose.
Yeah, and part of that production is how do we film that and capture what little we can do on film, and then how do we edit that to make big punchlines out of things that go beyond like just writing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. Sketch comedy's fun.
Comedy in general, comedy's fun, laughing's good.
Our homework.
Oh yeah.
We're going to talk about a little independent project called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Specifically, we have plans to watch Captain Marvel this weekend, which we didn't see.
Yeah, we didn't watch Captain Marvel yet, and Spider-Man.
Possibly Spider-Man. Maybe. 2 movies sounds like a lot.
Yeah. But Spider-Man's at the theater, just came out this weekend.
Yeah.
Here, anyway.
In China.
And we have Captain Marvel here in the house, so.
But we have thoughts about the whole endeavor.
We know lots about Marvel, and just like everybody else in the world, we have thoughts.
Yeah. So, Noodles, to you.
Hey, where's what button? Oh my god. Closing. Excelsior!